Anthony from Keyport writes, the school board's raising our taxes by 7%. What will you do to rein in these out-of-control school boards and towns and start making New Jersey affordable? And I'm going to piggyback on top of that and talk about the school funding formula, which has cost towns millions of dollars and resulted in skyrocketing property taxes.
Yeah, so I have a proven track record of cutting taxes. I did that in Englewood Cliffs at the municipal and at the school levels. And I also did it with cutting out all the craziness in terms of indoctrination out of our schools. As I mentioned earlier, we educated here. It's all very possible. You know what I did when I became mayor, and I wish I had a fancy name for it, like Doge, but I did what everyone else does in their households and in their businesses. I looked at our budget, and I cut out all the fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption. I mentioned my $230,000 a year police chief. It was a political hack. That's it, man. We eliminated all that. And so to make New Jersey affordable is certainly possible. You just have to cut out all the craziness and fluff that we have in our budget. The $58 billion budget doesn't do anything for most taxpayers here. It's just going to special interest groups.
But Mario, what about the school funding formula? I mean, the funding formula is broken. What is your idea for a school funding formula?
Well, it is completely broken. So first of all, I do support homeschooling, but also more importantly, support school choice, where the money follows the child, and towns should not have to be subsidizing the school boards of school education of other towns. Like, for example, in Newark, we spend $40,000 to $45,000 per pupil, and the level of teaching and the level of education are deplorable because those children aren't actually being educated. They're not doing well on the standardized tests.
What would you base your school funding formula on?
The actual true cost of educating a student, which, as I mentioned, once you cut the budget down and you figure out what it actually costs, that is exactly what taxpayers end up paying. In Englewood Cliffs, we basically did that. We didn't go along with the state in terms of the indoctrination and all the craziness that they want in the written curriculum. We actually saved money for taxpayers, and we provided a very good education. So I think we need to also support teachers the most because they delivered the product, and we need to do it as a meritocracy where they get merit pay.
Well,
we cut out all the consultants and we cut out all the consultants and administrators.
Okay, I get it, Mario. You've made that argument already. I get it, and it makes sense to a lot of people that are listening. But the biggest responsibility of the state is the school funding formula. And, you know, your local school boards are controlled by the local school boards. There's only so much the state can do unless you're intending to go in and take over every single school board in the state. It really comes down to the school funding formula. And, you know, and I've drilled every candidate that has appeared here on this particular issue is what will you base your school funding formula on? Now, you just said based on the actual cost of educating a child. That varies from district to district. So how are you going to come up with that formula, and how do you distribute that aid then equitably across the state?
So I'll correct you on one respect there. The biggest job of government is to protect our constitutional rights. Okay, it's nothing else.
I'm talking in terms of education, Mario. I don't want to mince words with you, but we're talking on the subject of education. And on the subject of education, one of the biggest responsibilities is coming up with an equitable school funding formula. And I'm just trying to figure out from you how you do that and what you're going to base it on.
Well, why do you think it's inequitable to figure out what your costs are, and then that's what you charge taxpayers?
So you're going to do that district by district. So you're going to go in and audit every school district in the state, and then come up with a number.
There are going to be caps because you know the way these school boards work is that they're awarding contracts to their friends to deliver lunches and other things to schools, and we need to cut that out. The taxpayers lose when the school board's friends are getting contracts.
But how do you do that from a state standpoint? I mean, are you talking you're going to edit every school district in New Jersey?
Absolutely. You doge it. It's not so difficult in the world of AI. We have the technology to do this. I did it without AI in Englewood Cliffs. And now with machine learning, you'll be able to do it statewide. You'll be able to figure out where the money's being wasted and return it to the taxpayers. I don't know why you think that's a challenge. But by the way, you also invited me to a conversation. And if you want to have a debate, then call your friend Bill Spadia get him on the radio with me right now, and we could debate this.
Mario, I'm not treating you. I wondered how long it was going to take you to go to that point. We're having a conversation, and it's no different than any other conversation. You're the one that wants to be confrontational about this, Mario.
You're raising the temperature, and I'll raise it with you. But
I am not raising the temperature. Mario, we're having a conversation about a school funding formula. I'm trying to ask you how you're going to get your school funding formula in place.
You're not buying into it because your friend Bill Spadea didn't think of it.
Mario, listen to me. I gotta ask you, why are you in this race? Why are you in this race? You're polling at 1%. You've raised less than $100,000.
Actually, you know so little about this race other than that you're a Spadiac who will support Bill Spadea despite the fact that he's got nothing.
Mario, I've had every candidate. No, you hold on. I've had every candidate on the air. You called up after a very tense conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, can I come on the air again? And I said yes. We've been every time I press you on a piece of policy, you get your backup. So I'm going to ask you, why are you in this race? You have no chance of winning.
Absolutely. We have a perfect chance of winning. We have a silent plurality that people like you who are all in on Spadea do not understand. And the reason I'm running is because I'm the best candidate to do this.
You keep mentioning Spadea. You barely mentioned Chitterelli. You barely mentioned Bramnick. This is, I got to tell you, Mario, this is all very reminiscent of Donald Trump using Chris Christie to attack Marco Rubio. Are you working for Chitterelli? Did Kellyanne Conway put you up to this campaign?
You're getting so upset. Eric. I'm the candidate who's actually the best candidate for the job.
You've yet to demonstrate that, Mario, because you can't answer simple policy questions. I'm trying, and you started this because I'm trying to get you to tell me what your school funding formula is, and you can't do it.
Eric, you may not like my answers. I just told you how the school funding formula gets reformed because it's a very basic thing that people like you and people who are part of the swamp don't understand is that you have to cut your expenses. You cannot continue doing what we're doing. It's not sustainable. There are way too many school districts in New Jersey. There are school superintendents in New Jersey without any schools to supervise. This is what the taxpayers are paying. And people like you do not want to acknowledge that. It's very simple.
Mario, I appreciate the fact that you've spent a couple of hours actually listening to the radio station because you've been here. But you have no idea the conversations that I've had and what I've talked about for the last 34 years. Frankly, I've been in and around and covering government longer than you've been a part of it. So maybe you give me a little bit of credit for having a knowledge about certain things, and I'm trying to ask you to give me specifics. You refuse to do it. I got to take a break. You're welcome to join me for the last segment if Kellyanne Conway and Jack Chitterelli will allow it. It's 8:47 on New Jersey 101.5.